about a baker, and it was around Christmas time when he started selling little St. Nicholas cookies. And one day, a very ugly old lady, came into his shop to purchase some cookies. He gave her a dozen cookies like she asked, and she looked at it confused and said, "Only 12 cookies?" She said, "I asked for a dozen." He said, "A dozen is 12. And knowing what she meant, he did not feel like she deserved a free cookie, and that this standard was not something he wanted to participate in. So he gave her 12, and she was angry, so she left without taking any of the cookies. The next day, his luck immediately changed, and he started having his cookies burn, his bread would inflate, and the lady returned about a week later of this continuously happening, and she asked again for a dozen cookies. He was angry that she decided to show back up in his shop, and he immediately told her to get out. And the next day, his bread was heavier than anything before, that it burned in the fire in the oven, and he started losing his customers, even the ones that have been coming to his shop for years. After this, he started losing so many customers that he was losing his money, and the ugly old lady returned for the third time, asking again for a dozen cookies. This time, he told her to go see the devil, and he locked the door behind her. After this, the following day, he decided to try baking his St. Nicholas cookies again, and this time, he watched them very carefully. He was wondering what was going to happen, if there was too much cinnamon, too little sugar, if they were going to burn, or not cook at all. And when they came out of the oven, they were perfect. So he pulled them out and very carefully decided to frost them in the shape of St. Nicholas's red outfit, his little white beard, and they came out perfectly. When he looked up, he realized that St. Nicholas himself was right behind him, and knew who he was immediately, except he wasn't wearing his red robe like the cookie he just drew, but he had the white beard and the kind eyes that he always heard about. St. Nicholas was talking to him and asked why he couldn't give away any cookies for free when St. Nicholas spent his whole life just giving money to the poor and helping them. And he said that he should become more generous for the people that were in his town, because money is always something that can come back, and generosity is something that people pay attention to forever. So the baker was so terrified, and he was shaking at his knees because St. Nicholas was talking to him. And from that point forward, he took St. Nicholas's word into his hands, and the ugly old lady returned the next day. When she returned, she asked again for a dozen cookies, and the young man gave her the cookies with no charge. And from that point forward, she said 13 cookies is a dozen. And that is why we have a baker's dozen being as 13.